Hello, this is Jill at engVid.com, and today we're going to be having a look at a very interesting aspect of the English language. What happens with some words if you stress a different syllable? Okay, this is quite important because sometimes the change of stress just changes a noun to a verb or a verb to a noun, but there are some other words which we'll also be looking at where the meaning of the word completely changes if you change which syllable you're stressing. Okay, so this is quite important to be clear on which syllable to stress for the particular meaning that you want. Okay. So we're going to start with the easier part, which is a two-syllable word. So two syllables, two syllables, where if you stress it on the first syllable, where I've put capital letters, it's the noun. And if you stress it on the second syllable, again, capital letters, it becomes the verb. The general meaning is the same with this group of words, but you're changing from noun to verb when you're changing the stress. Okay, so it's important to know whether you're saying a noun or a verb. So remember, it's always the first stress syllable is the noun, second syllable stressed is the verb. Okay, so let's have a look at the examples here. So a record, if you keep a record of something, or if you play a record that has music on it, in the days when we used to have black plastic records that went round and round on a gramophone or a record player, a record is something recorded, or if you write down in a document, you make a note of something, you keep a record of something that happened or something that was agreed. Maybe in a meeting, somebody keeps a note of the discussion of the meeting, and then they print it out and send it to everyone who was at the meeting as a record of that meeting. What was discussed, what was agreed, and so on. So the record, that's the noun, the record. A record is the noun. But if you then change the stress and say record, that becomes the verb. We are going to record a song. So if you're making a CD, maybe now, rather than a black plastic record that goes round, a CD, we are going to record the new song that we've written. Or at the meeting, we will record the agreement. So that is the verb, the action of recording. If you say recording, it's the chord bit that you stress. But a record is the thing itself, the noun. Okay. And you'll also notice the vowel sound changes slightly because you're changing the stress. So record, the sound, but record, it becomes an sound here. Record. So sometimes with the change of stress, the vowel sound changes too. Okay. Right, next one. Suspect and suspect. Right? So suspect, if someone is a suspect, they are usually, maybe the police think that they committed a crime. We have caught the suspect. We are questioning a suspect of someone who maybe stole something from a shop, and then somebody identifies them later and that is a suspect. So that's the noun. The person usually is a suspect. If you suspect someone, if you do the action of suspecting, the police suspect this person of having committed that crime. So we suspect if you do the action of suspecting. So suspect is the noun, suspect is the verb, the action of having suspicion about somebody. Okay. Import and import. An import, or the import, is some product that is imported from one country to another. We have imports. The goods themselves, the products which arrive by plane or ship, that's the import. Okay, the thing itself. But the action is we import these goods on a daily basis. We are importing the goods. So the action is import. Right? An insult, that is an insult. If somebody says something bad to you, they say, "Oh, you don't look very nice today. I don't like what you're wearing. It's terrible. I don't like your hair. I don't like anything about you." That's an insult. That's a really not very nice thing to say to anybody. So they make an insult. That's the thing itself that they say, the noun. And then the action is they have insulted you. That was, and you might say to them, "Please don't insult me. Please don't insult me." So that's the action, or telling them not to do that action. Please don't insult me. All right. A conflict, like with a war, people fighting. There was a conflict today in the street. There were people fighting in the street. There was a conflict, and the police had to come and stop it happening. So that's the actual situation. So that's the noun, a conflict, an actual thing that was there happening. But when people conflict, that's the verb, the action. So these people fighting in the street with their conflict, they were conflicting. So they were doing that action. They conflict. Right. Permit. So if you're maybe travelling from one country to another, sometimes you need a permit to travel. So a document, maybe with your photograph on. I have my permit here with my photograph on. So the person at the border might want to check your passport, your other documents, your visa, your permit, your permission to be there, to come into that country, your permit. So it's a thing, a document, a noun. But then the activity, they at the border will permit you to enter the country. They will permit you. So that's the action, the permission. They will permit you. So I have my permit, so they should permit me to enter. Okay. And then finally, for this section, a reject is the thing in a factory, often, where things are made in a factory. Sometimes things go wrong and some of the items manufactured in the factory, they come along the conveyor belt, and there are people called quality control inspectors who check to make sure every item is right, that everything has come out well. Sometimes, though, there's something with, it hasn't come out right, there's something missing, it's damaged, so it's a reject. So they might take it off the conveyor belt and throw it in a box. So it's a reject. There's something wrong with it. That's the thing. But the action that they do in removing it and throwing it into a box, they are rejecting that item. That's the action of they reject the item. So they reject the reject. Okay, so on that happy note, we'll move on to the second set of words. Okay, so moving on to our second set of words, we're looking at some changes of meaning, but this time there is very little connection in the meaning from one to the other. So, for example, there's one with 3 syllables here, invalid and invalid. Okay, so they're totally different meanings. An invalid is someone who maybe they can't walk very easily, they're disabled, they may use a wheelchair. An invalid, or they may be just temporarily unable to move around easily. Maybe they had an accident and they're on crutches, something like that. So an invalid is a person who has been injured or they have difficulty moving, walking. Okay, so then invalid, that's an adjective meaning not valid. So the in at the beginning means not. So if something is invalid, you cannot use it. Maybe your passport, when you go to another country, you didn't notice that it was out of date. The date has gone by and you forgot to renew it. And at the border control, they might say, I'm sorry, your passport is invalid. You can't use it. You can't come in. So that's a completely different meaning from someone who has difficulty moving around. So invalid. Okay. Next one, content and content. Right. Now, the content of something is what is inside it. If you have a box with things inside, it contains those things. So the content or contents with an S, or the content of a document, what's in the document, that's the meaning of content, what is in something. So that's a noun, okay? If you are content, that's an adjective describing how you are. If I'm content, I'm happy, comfortable, enjoying myself. I'm very content, you can say. I'm really content just sitting here reading a book. It's a sort of relaxed kind of meaning of happy, just content, just comfortable, content. Okay, now, next one. Entrance and entrance. So entrance is a noun. The entrance to a building, it's where you go in. The entrance, the front door, entrance. You enter through the entrance. So that's a noun. To entrance somebody, so that's a verb. I was entranced, meaning sort of amazed by something, hypnotized maybe. Oh, entranced. So put into a trance. If you know the word trance, if you're in a trance, someone has hypnotized you. So to be entranced or to entrance somebody, if you are the hypnotist and you entrance someone, you put them into a trance. So that's the verb. Okay, next one. Refuse and refuse. The refuse is the rubbish. If you throw your refuse out once a week and into a dustbin or rubbish bin or refuse bin, and the local council, the local authority come and collect it, and it goes to a place. So all the rubbish, the refuse, okay? But so that's a noun. But if you refuse something, so that's the verb to refuse, it's to say no to something, right? I refuse to go out today, it's raining. I refuse. No, I'm not going. Refuse. Okay. Next one, object and object. An object, so it's a noun, is a thing. This pen here is an object. There are objects everywhere, so they're nouns. If you object to something, so that's a verb, you're saying, again, it's a bit like refuse. Object, you disagree. You say, no, I don't agree with that. I object. If you're at a meeting and they have made a decision or they want to do something that you don't like, you say, no, I object to that. I don't want that to happen. Okay. Desert and desert. So the desert, a noun, is like the Sahara Desert, huge hot area that's just sand, no water. The desert, in the desert. Okay, so that's the noun. To desert, so it's a verb. If you desert somebody, so I was with my friend shopping and she saw somebody else she knew and she deserted me and went off with this other friend. So I was deserted. So if you desert somebody, you leave them alone and go somewhere else instead. Okay. Then finally, console and console. So this is a noun. The console is usually at a machine where you're looking at a screen, maybe a computer and a keyboard and controls and things that you press, buttons. The console, it's sort of control, a place where you control something, the console. If you console someone, so it's a verb, to console someone is when somebody is upset, unhappy, something bad has happened to them, and so you console them by maybe put your arm around them, say, don't worry, it'll be okay, try to make them feel better and sympathise with them. You're consoling them. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. And there's a list here, lots more words. I've found all the words I could where this kind of thing happens. There isn't time in the lesson to go into all of these, but I've specially written a resource document which is on the engVid.com website where all of this is explained, okay? And there is also a quiz in there that you can do. So please go to the resource sheet, look at all the explanations. You might want to download it onto your computer, print it out. It should be a very useful thing to know the differences between these words and with the different stresses. So please go to the website, engVid.com, to the resource sheet, which includes the quiz. And if you'd like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I hope you'll do that too. And look forward to seeing you again as soon as possible. Okay, bye for now.